I really feel like a fat kid in a candy store right now because I've been trying to get this man on for a while now. Jim Wilhelmsen. You can go to his website, which is Echoes of Enoch. Echoes of Enoch. It has echoesofenoch.com. He has a lot of this website has been around since 1999. How many websites can you say that's been around that long? And he has a lot of great articles on there, a lot of great material that I guess he's posted over the course of the years. Because past couple of days, I've been searching his website and just trying to find, some things to maybe talk about, notes. And there's a lot. He talks about everything when it comes to ancient mysteries, UFOs, the Nephilim, pretty much. Just go check it out, Echoes of Enoch. And Jim, my man, the myth, the legend, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm not used to, people usually laugh at me and think I'm the biggest kook, but you know what? History has caught up to my work and it's making sense to people now. So, doors are opening that were never open before. So it's pretty good.
So I guess for those that may not be familiar with you, explain a little bit about yourself and I guess how did a pastor, because I know you've preached some pretty good bit. How did you get into ancient mysteries, UFOs, extraterrestrials, alternative history? I guess explain a little bit on that, your background a little bit.
Sure. I became a Christian when I was 23 years old, so pretty young. I'm 68 now, so I've been a Christian most of my life, and through that, I've had a crazy childhood. I mean, I grew up in Livonia, Michigan, and it was probably at one time it was called the safest city in Michigan, and I mean it was just it was so bad. I remember one time a Livonia cop was caught doing a bank robbery, and I was kidding. I said, well, they don't have any crime, so I guess they kind of make their own crime to keep busy or something. But just 3 miles down the road on the other side of Telegraph was now what has become the worst, most dangerous neighborhood in all of Detroit. It's called Brightmoor section of Detroit. So my grandparents lived there, and I spent half of my life being babysit by them, the other half with my parents. So I got a unique ability to grow up learning what it's like to be in the hood and yet learning what it's like to be a country kid. And when I got into more of an academia, I mean, when I was in Roswell, I was invited by a lot of the PhD theologians and Bible scholars and others working in the secular UFO investigation stuff. They invited me after they heard me speak. They just automatically assumed I had a PhD. When they found out I was a biker welder from Detroit, some of them were a little upset. But while they're quoting, I think the only difference is while they're quoting theologians on their ideas about, certain topics, I'm quoting the word of God. I mean, it's not that I don't appreciate the theologians. Why quote man when you can quote the word? The word always gives you exactly what you need on the subject. So they were kind of blown away by that. So it's funny because they would still invite me to come when they had tough audiences that they know, the debate was going to get tough. They'd bring me. So I imagine it's like, from my gangland experience, you got some big guy that's dribbling his nose all the time and spitting or talking weird or acting weird, but he's the biggest, baddest, toughest guy around. So you invite him when you know you're going to have a fight because he's your anchor man. So they kind of did it with me. And, I was a little upset. And at that time, I was embarrassed of my blue collar background. I wanted to try to hide it. But at the same time, I got to be myself. Now I embrace it. Now I get it. Now I understand why God allowed me to be in both camps, because my ministry is mainly directed in the inner city to the homeless, to the forgotten. And you'd be surprised what I find. I mean, there are pieces of gold in those people, people that have even surpassed my own education. And now here they are living on the streets like a bum. And it's because of addictions, making wrong choices, and then they blew it. And so I'm able to be there to give them an opportunity. Now, when I pastored, I never did anything inside the box. So my first ministry that I pastored was the first Christian motorcycle ministry in Detroit and one of the first in the country. And we eventually were accepted. And I think even some of the skeptics, because we had so many people getting saved through our ministry, that it couldn't be denied that, hey, these guys are onto something. And but we literally risked our lives for the gospel. We were threatened. We had 2 clubhouses blown up I've had guns, knives, and baseball bats in front of me that I shouldn't be here right now. But in the
Hmm.
name of Jesus, He saved me. I never realized this was all in preparation for what I'm doing now. I mean, that stuff was like, in a sense, almost kid stuff compared to what all of us are going to be faced with very soon. So this was only a preparation. I'm writing a second book now called "From Harley Choppers to Aliens and Saucers: What a Long, Strange, Rewarding Life It's Been." It's kind of an autobiography going through everything. But getting back to how did I get into this? Well, I was a victim myself. I was abducted from about 5 years old to about 12 years old. I thought they were just dreams. Um, when I started investigating and researching this, I'm going, oh my God, this defines my entire childhood. The nosebleeds, the humming in the ears, knowing that I was going to have a dream tonight. They mask the experience by dreams. And you just think you're just an overimaginative kid, which I was. I mean, I was a sci-fi nut, from gosh 5 years old. I was collecting Yuri Gagarin being the first man in space, the Sputnik. I mean, I followed everything right from the very beginning, and I was fascinated with it. I remember one time looking up in heaven and asking, "Are you guys real? Are you here to help us, or you come down here to eat us up or something?" Man, how prophetic that was, and I had no idea about that because, in a sense, that's what they are. Some of them are doing. So, um, but unfortunately, that was a door that I left wide open for these things to come down and deceive the heck out of me. And they did. There was even an implant. I was probably one of the last people that Dr. Roger Lear, uh, checked out. I was working with L.A. Marzulli. I went to his house. We were filming one of the DVDs for him.
He's
And
very fascinating. I've had LA on the show very much. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
no, that's so when when he found out that I was an abduction victim, because he didn't know, and I had known him for like 5, 6 years at that time. He said, "Oh, wow, Roger Lear is just down the road. Let's go and get you checked out." And I did, and there was something in my noodle broadcasting in FM, and so he was kind of concerned. He says, "Aren't you concerned?" I said, "No. Think about it, LA. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 23 years old. At that time, I was like 51 or 2 or something like that." I said, "So most of my life, I have been working hard to expose all of this stuff, and I found a way to stop it through the inner healing process." And so, when first got into this stuff, I already had 20 years of working with cross addictions in the inner city with bikers, and so, it was an easy transition for me to know how to deal with this thing because it's the same enemy, just a different disguise. So, but to tell everybody you've been abducted by aliens, it's not something that I usually broadcast. Sorry, I didn't let you know, but that's why I didn't.
How how,
So,
how did your family and friends, I guess, think about maybe you being abducted, and also later in life when you started, preaching um, with the motorcycle group? What did your friends and family think of you whenever you started? Because if you did, they know that you were abducted and that you have possibly had an interest in these topics? Because I know a lot of I can't talk about these things at work. I can't. Um, and it's sad. I hate to be fake, and it's the thing is I have to go along with the crowd just so I can make a living, because they would boot me out the door if I told them what I really thought.
right. Well, I do it in increments. I mean, I was still working. I got a degree in welding, but I didn't use it because I was a pastor, and to get into middle management, that job I'm married to it 24/7. If I'm working on the floor as a welder, fitter, or layout guy, I'm there 9 to 5, and then I'm out of here. Now I can be pastor. I can take the hat off and put on the other hat. So and I stayed on the floor just so I could be a more effective pastor and minister. But when I go into the shops, well, like, here's for an example. Way back just before I got saved, I had this plan. I was going to be running my own shop someday. I got out of college, but going into college, being a college kid, going into a welding shop where there's the good old boys that are have maybe a third or fourth grade education, they are going to beat me up. I mean, they'll make all kinds of go get a bottle of or bucket of Blue Sparks. And I'm thinking, Blue Sparks must be a name for maybe some spray that you use for anti-spatter or something. So I'm going looking for it, and they're all laughing, just thinking it. I said, okay, I got to change my tactics. I come in here with my resume. They know I'm educated, and I want to just learn as much as I can to run my own place. So what I did, I go up to I'd find out who's the best welder in this shop. Then I'd go up to him and I said, look, everybody says you're the best welder. Even though I got a degree, man, I don't know half of what I'm doing. Somebody like you knows all the little secrets and everything. If you'll make a trade with me, I will be your arm bearer. I will get you coffee. I will serve you and do whatever I can if you will teach me all that you know. Now, usually the guy, now the first one that did this, he had only a third grade education from Kentucky. And finally, he met somebody that respects him and respects his experience. Man, that dude was eating out of my hand. And we developed a good friendship. I mean, it wasn't superficial or anything. I needed something from him, so I'm going to make a symbiotic relationship where he's going to get something back. Here's a kid that appreciates me. Here's a kid that wants me to teach him. You know what? I'm excited to do that. And it worked. And then I went to the next shop. Who's the best fitter in this place? Do the same thing. Learn that. Who's the best layout man? The next thing you know, within 10 years, I'm experienced enough to run my own shop and run everything. So that's what, but then God had another plan for me. He said, no, you're going to stay there because I got this other direction you're going to do. I was even offered the position that I thought I, could have. And I had to turn it down because I knew God had another path for me. But fortunately, the boss of that company is now born again, spirit filled, and loves the Lord. He's followed me. I gave him my book when I finally wrote it. I was working for him, and he after he read the book, he says, "Well, you're a better welder than a writer, but it was pretty interesting." Now, ultimately, it got him saved, and I just think that's great.
Before the show, you were talking about the book Cydonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars. Explain a little bit about that book, and I guess what is the significance with this book, and maybe the correlation with some of your research.
Dave and Mark Flynn, they're twins. They're the only people on this planet I've actually had to say, wait, stop, slow down. It's like I'm a quad core processor. I'm a dual core processor. You're a quad core processor. Slow down. I can't take all this at one time. So they slow down. Later, I actually found out why, and it's pretty incredible. But they saw this world as a matrix, and they could see it in numbers and number values. And Mark works for the government in computer encryption and code breaking. He works on the highest level, defending ourselves from the Chinese hacking and everything, and figuring out how to hack them. So it's kind of like spy versus spy. So it was easy for Dave to see a lot of these things in numerical values, understanding that there's an electromagnetic grid around the Earth. At the intersections, there's vortexes. Possibly, this is where there's such an electromagnetic activity. We're talking about magic. We're talking about physics, that it's easy to open and close portals in these cross-sectioned areas. And when you see what is actually in all of these cross-section areas, there begins to start to have a pattern that starts to make sense. I'm a firm believer when people say, oh, they did a magic enchantment. Well, you know what? There's probably sounds there that are vibrations that are actually creating real science. Because, man, there's a lot of born-again, spirit-filled Christians that are defecting to the New Age movement. And because they see sandwiched in a wrong premise and a wrong conclusion is a real physics that Christianity doesn't want to address. Oh, that's of the devil. You better not mention it. Or, Jim, you're getting too much into this stuff, and I'm afraid it's influencing you, and you're talking about the third eye and all this stuff is being real. I mean, aren't you afraid that, you're going to cross over? No, because I know my God. I know his mind. I know his heart. And I pray and I ask, Lord, where does this in your word? I'm not going to believe it until I see it in your word. And you know what? I find scriptures that nobody else ever found, only because I'm willing to be open to being wrong and being corrected. And I want to know the truth no matter what. And I've had to, reevaluate a lot of my teaching and thinking that, by very godly men that I trusted. But some stuff has just been passed down from very faithful people that have never bothered to look up this in the original languages or anything. They just accept it because they trust the person that taught them. And it gets passed down decade after decade. And next thing you know, it's made into a doctrine. And how can you have a doctrine of how the future events have happened when they haven't happened yet? That's what the Jews did, man. They looked at Jesus. Oh, well, we know when Messiah comes, he's going to do this, this, and this. And dude, get your dogma out of the way and look. You're talking to the thing the very person you've been waiting for. we're doing the same thing. You know, we think we got everything all figured out in a little pamphlet. That's about the time God shows us we don't got anything figured out. It's going to be a lot different than what you thought. So, you know, it's been a long road, but the Lord has supplied and equipped me with some of the best minds in the world that became my personal friends. I look at Dave as being one of them. He showed me how from the 33.3 degree latitude line, this is where the sons of God first descended upon the earth in Genesis 6. Then they were deified 410 miles due east, where the Tower of Babel once stood. This is where they were deified as gods, ancient gods and goddesses and stuff. So what I started working on, now this happened all, I should say this, I forgot this part. This happened because something very personal happened to Mark and Dave. In Canterbury, England, which is a direct reflection of what his book talks about, Cydonia Mars, and the stuff that they discovered there. I think it was, what was his name? The Nassau scientist. I was actually in a round table discussion with him, and senior mode, I'm forgetting his name.
NASA scientist?
Richard Hoagland.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were at a round table discussion with Richard Hoagland, but Dave wrote the book, Cydonia, The Secret Chronicles of Mars. And we literally used that as a guidebook when we were in the Sonora Desert looking for something that we realized was probably there. How this happened was in Canterbury, England, there was a crop circle that showed up, and it showed an alien holding up a disc. Well, Mark's computer company, kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, he had an alien holding up a computer chip. So this was like a direct, you know, now some people say, oh, you're reading, that's crazy. No, it isn't. These guys are, you know, they encrypted. The disk had an American codex, and it was giving longitude and latitude lines for certain things, and using a formula that Dave knows that I wouldn't even begin to understand. He got dates. So for Roswell, New Mexico, they gave the coordinates. Okay, that's in Roswell, New Mexico. And one of the dates was 19.47, 1947. Something significant would happen. He got one for Mount Hermon. He got one for, now this is not using the Greenwich Village, but the old standard, I think it was the French one that they used to use, mariners used to use. Now, based on that, he found all of these different places with dates, coordinates, and everything. And so he saw that from, you know, there was a date like from when they first landed, and then when they were deified 410 miles away in downtown Baghdad, there was the Tower of Babel. So I started realizing that 33.3. Now Dave said, oh my gosh, you go on the other side of the world, and this is downtown Roswell, New Mexico, where the crash happened in 1947. So I said, Dave, it's a mirror, man. I said, I took the measurements from Mount Hermon to Baghdad, 410 miles. I took it from Roswell out in the Sonora Desert, somewhere around Judgment Rock at the Eagle Tail Mountains. Somewhere in that area, there's an underground base. What? And I said, yeah, look up Genesis 10. Look up all the words of the 5 named fortresses of the Philistines. I said the 5 is associated with the Pentagon and the reappearance of the Philistines in this country. I said, so look at it as, he says, Jim, that's what the occult does. They love to mirror things. So you have a mirror in the east, and now you're telling me we got a mirror that reflects the same thing in the west. I said, sure. The second coming of these giants, the Nephilim or whatever, the second coming was as aliens landing there. I said, that is found in Zechariah 4th chapter. It's there. It's the Roswell crash. That the whole purpose was to set a foundation for this woman, the false belief system, and then grow from there. And the object that they were talking about was a talent of lead. But in the actual Hebrew, it means a shiny silvery disc. So this has what they call a rule of duplicity. One was for the time in the prophet's own time, but there was going to be a replay that's going to be a little different. What is the object that is going to deceive the whole world is a shiny silvery disc, a UFO. And so one crashes in Roswell. So now it is the foundation. It's almost the mecca for the whole world. If you want to know about UFOs and aliens, come to Roswell, New Mexico, and you'll find it. Of course, when they get there, the first thing is, where's Area 51? So about 980 miles north of here. It's in Nevada. Oh man, I thought it was good. No, it's that far away. But if you got the time, go. It's probably worth it. But so that was just kind of funny. But so I wanted to go, and somebody heard of my desire to go into the Sonora Desert, but I had no money to put on a trip like that. This guy was from the Netherlands, and now he's a great friend of mine. He's provided my ministry with so much. Um, he sent me $4,000. He says
Wow.
PayPal won't let me send this money, but is there a way I can have your bank account? So I go, man, I don't know. It sounds like a scam. So you know what? I'll just open up an account specifically for him, and if it really happens, okay. Well, I still got that account. It worked. He gave me the money to be able to supply my son, and now a guy who's probably the second most knowledgeable person of my stuff would be this friend that went with me. And he was way out of his element, but man, he was a brave warrior for the Lord. It was awesome. We went to Sedona, Arizona. We went to Prescott, Arizona. We went um, we went to the spot and put a plaque in warning of what was going to happen and what is happening, and knowing and promising that everything that was kept secret is going to be known. And it was pretty cool the way we put it. So we put it right smack dab, and we said within a 50-mile radius from this point here, there is an underground laboratory where all this Frankenstein stuff is going on. While our government thinks that we're preserving our soldiers by building a super soldier of a kind of a cybernetic thing, they're actually reinstalling the disembodied spirits we call demons back into a body, and this is their resurrection. This is what they're creating as an army that's going to turn back on them, because they're not, they don't have three dimensions. They don't have a spirit, soul, and a body. They got maybe a soul that's weakened and a body, but the evil spirits are the ones controlling and operating everything. So our military is being manipulated. They don't know
So
what.
So is that really what the secret space, the super soldier program is really about? Is the trying to put these disembodied spirits into these soldiers to maybe?
I don't think they know that it's disembodied spirits. They think they're using artificial intelligence, but it's
I
not.
gotcha.
Electricity is electricity, whether it's chemical or mechanical. Now we can integrate the two, so you can't tell. I think Russ Dizdar on his own came to the same conclusions through his research and study. I mean, we are so much similar alike um, on all of that stuff. I don't know if you ever had Russ Dizdar in your program.
No.
Well, he's a guy you want to get a hold of. He knows about the super soldier program and everything too. The only difference is I found the location. I know where they're doing it, and they're connected to a tunnel system that's going all throughout the country, even maybe to every military base. But I'll tell you that the thing is, our military, even on a high level, don't know what they're doing. They've been programmed to do everything the Nazi way, from paperclip, Operation Paperclip. So they compartmentalize everything. One hand doesn't know what the other one's doing. They don't get the big picture. So they're all told that they're using alien technology, and this stuff is going to save lives of American soldiers. So that's what they think they're doing. They don't know what it really is. And if and when they do, if they become someone that speaks out, like a few have, they die, they disappear. So but they're very brave people that have done that. But there's been some that have done that. Um, the one that talked about the war at Dulce underground base,
Phil Schneider.
Schneider, a hero. He had the guts to come out and speak out what was really going on, and the rippling effect of his little seed planted has changed, I think, a lot of lives and opened up a lot of eyes. But it was at the cost of his own life. There's been other people that have done the same thing. And unfortunately, I believe my friend Dave met the same thing. Because right when we were starting to collaborate and find this stuff out, suddenly he dies from something that's in his family. His father died the same way. But the timing on this, no, that I don't think that was coincidental. And
Yeah,
Mark,
and of course, whenever people like Phil Schneider and others out there, they always get suicided. They
yeah,
always kill themselves.
yeah. Even though their family can testimony that, hey, he would never do that. I mean, this is what happened. But this is crazy. I got this in my museum so that everybody can see some things that seems so disjointed. Everything is describing paradise lost and regained. Everything is connected. We're in a matrix, man. We're not even in a real world. We're in Pinocchio world. It wants to be real, but it won't, and it can't ever be. So when you understand that, there's a lot of things. Inagata Vita, Iron Butterfly. I think you probably, you're younger, but you probably heard of it. I'm sure you did. Everybody.
Yeah, I have.
No. Well, did you know that was supposed to be in the Garden of Eden? And a
Really?
lot of songs, yeah, and a lot of their songs are satanically, demonically inspired theology that once you re-listen to it, you go, oh my gosh. You can do the same thing with the Doors. The Doors, Morrison, everything that we know. I mean, even quantum physics, whether you understood it or not, encoded in all of his music is everything laid out. I just blow my mind when I hear it. And what is his album called? His music group, The Doors. The Doors meaning
Doors to what? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it is, and he knows it, and he knew that that's what he was doing. Probably why he died at 27, because he was getting ready to, research and get into some of this even more in depth. And him and his daddy didn't get along too well, and he was a rear admiral in the Navy, the youngest to be promoted to that level. Yeah, so there's a lot going on. So, anyways, in the band Inagata, the Iron Butterfly, they get a new bass player, Brian. Brian, come on. Sorry, Brian, I forgot your last name. Anyways, this new bass player ends up becoming a theoretical physicist. And this guy's like a super whiz. When he graduated, he had everybody was interested in what he was doing. He ended up working for Northrop, working on the MX missile. From there, he developed a formula to transfer matter faster than the speed of light. And all of a sudden, he gets off. He was connected to some new age.
Brian Jones. Brian Jones. No.
I got it in my museum.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to stop your flow there.
Oh, that's okay. So, anyways, he goes from just being a scientist working on a missile to all of a sudden working black ops with the government department, DOD, and he developed and was working on a program to develop the cell phones to be able to send a signal faster than the speed of light. He was mainly working in the phone area. All of a sudden, he joined some kind of a new age group, and his family contacted me, and they were convinced they wanted to correct me from a video that I had. I was implying in the video that he didn't commit suicide and run his car off of the cliff. His wife said that he loved his family more than life itself. He would never do that and leave them alone like that. I believe that. When they contacted me to correct me, they said, no, the government didn't take him out. He went crazy at the end of his life. He was talking about sound and light and vibrations and time travel and aliens. I mean, he went crazy. I said, thank you very much. You just confirmed everything that he said was real. As crazy as it might sound, it's real. He found that out. He didn't die as somebody, hopeless or anything. He died as a hero trying to reach the public to let them know what was really going on. I said, your relative, I don't know how you're related, but your relative was not a coward. He didn't commit suicide. He was trying to get this open to the public, and he just conveniently died of suicide. I don't believe it. I said, and now you just confirmed everything that I was, thinking about. So I said, thank you. They weren't happy with me, but now maybe as things are going out, they might have changed their mind and realized.
A while ago, you was talking about portals, and now I've heard you mention before, Jim, that heaven and hell are parallel dimensions. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I'm not sure what interview I heard it, whatever. I don't know if you meant to word it another way or whatever, but I guess what did you mean by heaven and hell are parallel dimensions?
I mean, what we are in right now, this life that we have, quantum physicists all agree that it's a computer program, a matrix. And so their question is, who's controlling the program? Well, the little g God of this world is controlling this program. We are in his idea of what he hopes will become true. If you understand quantum physics, there's 2 electrons that will go through 2 slots. In one slot, it goes in and it shows the normal pattern that you would expect. When you put 2 slots, that's when things go crazy. The 2 slots, sometimes both will go in, sometimes one will go in first, the other one later, sometimes neither one go in. I mean, there's just different conditions. But whenever anything goes in, as soon as it does, as soon as they measure it or look at it, it changes what is going to be like on the canvas, actual real time. It's almost like a fast freeze frozen. They know when to stop it, and whatever is going on at that moment in history becomes the reality. Now, the interesting thing is the first one that goes in, the second one can overwrite what the first one did. Now, I find it interesting that the 2 secret societies that claim they have secret knowledge and claim all kinds of stuff, one is the compass and the square, the Masons, and the other ones are the Illuminati. And what is their symbol? An eye or something to measure. Duh. I don't think that's a simple understanding. There are so many things like that. But the thing is, if you get caught up just on symbolism, because it's everywhere, if you get caught up just on symbolism and focus on that as being like the cake instead of the icing, man, you're going to go crazy. You're going to go crazy because some of these symbols are symbolizing what's already been done, and it's an affirmation. Some of them are prophetic, what they're about to do, but they have to post it out like that for you. If you're not going back and having a foundation to know the difference of what's coming and what's going, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So what's that foundation? It's the Word of God. I guarantee you that there's nothing in this world, nothing that's going on that isn't there in the Word. It's there. No matter how crazy it is, if it's real, God has a protection for us, and He shows us the scriptures and then shows you how this all fits into the bigger picture. So by doing that, then you know what's coming and what's going. You go, oh, well, wow, okay. But the greatest thing to know, the war's already been won. We are studying the effects of losers. They don't win, they just don't know it. We have already won, but unfortunately, many Christians don't know that the battle's already won. Don't get stressed out. You know, whether Trump gets in or out or whatever happens in politics or any other affairs of man, God has this all figured out, man, and we win, they lose. So why do we have to be afraid of anything? You know, my 2 favorite scriptures, Romans 8:28, we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to His purpose. And then 38, Romans 8:38, that's my best one. And we know that nothing can separate us from the love of God, whether it be, powers or things past, things present. He makes a whole long list of all this stuff, or any other creature. Nothing can separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. Man, with those kind of promises, what do we got to worry about? And even, chemtrails, you look at all these other things that they've got against us. Yeah, it's overwhelming. It's killing all of us, one way or another. The Georgia Guidestones, they're showing they're going to, eliminate 6.5 billion people so that they can run things the way they want to. It ain't going to happen. They're losers. So they got a plan, but we got a Bible that tells us that plan never worked. So what do we got to worry about? It's hard to get from here to where we're going to be, but any war is hard. And if you're a vet, then you get it, you understand it. If you don't, unfortunately, that's a hard concept to understand. But, we win. We don't have to worry about it. We can sing the song at the end, "Oh, the world as we know it, but I feel fine." That's a deep song for me, man. It's sorrowful to see the death and destruction that's going to happen, but it's also good to know that we're on the winning side if we're trusting Christ.
So well said also, Jim. And back to, I guess, the alien grays. Many researchers have talked about that the grays and other alien beings are actually demons. What are your thoughts on that, Jim? And if that's the case, what proof can you pull maybe from the scriptures or elsewhere that they are demons?
Well, there's a misconception in Christianity of the difference between a demon and a fallen angel. And I think that's pivotal right there in understanding. You're talking apples and oranges. They're 2 different creations.
Mm-hmm.
Demons are the disembodied spirits that were the hybrids that were created from the Genesis 6 incursion. So it's kind of important to know how they were born and who did it, because they got that wrong too. The Nephilim were not the offspring of the sons of God. The sons of God and human women cohabited and made the Gibborim. Totally different entity. And it's there in Genesis 6. The proof in that is, we talked about this earlier. The proof in that is I got 3 skeletons in my museum. I've got one that shows a pre-flood giant at 30 foot. I got the post-flood, after the flood giants at 15 feet. That's the maximum height that's been found. And then I got a normal 6-foot woman. Now, the ratio of birth for these sizes is 1/6 of the size of a normal human being will produce a 1.5 foot baby. So a 15-footer, half, 1/6 of 15 feet. So you got like maybe 4.5, 5 feet. A 30-foot giant, that's a baby that's 7.5 feet, and that's a small. Now you tell me, how does this? Now, how can I prove that all of the skeletons that were 30 foot are pre-flood from the post-flood? Because all of the bones that we find that are that tall, we never had a complete skeleton, but all the bones of super giants, they're all fossilized. That was produced by massive burial of material and replaced by a mineral deposit. That was pre-flood. The post-flood 15-footers, they're all bleached bones or they're mummies. And it's solid. There's not a mixture either going either way. One is definitely pre-flood, one is definitely post-flood. And there's difference in reasons for that. They're connected, but they're different. So how does a 6.5 foot woman have a 7.5 foot baby? It don't fit. It doesn't work. Our theology is wrong. You got to rethink this. When you look at the grammar structure in Genesis 6, it says that there were giants in the earth also in that day. Okay, and it says that it does say the same. It says when there were giants in the earth in those days, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. And it says, and they. So who's they then? Are they talking about the Nephilim, or are they talking about the time or the mixture of the sons of God and the daughters of men? The Nephilim did not produce the offspring. The sons of God and the daughters of men, normal-sized humans, cohabited and produced a normal-sized supernatural being called the Gibor. They were mighty warriors. Now, Gibor is used for, any mighty warrior in general. So it could be human or it could be supernatural. You got to look at the context of who's talking to who and where are they at and what they're doing. So in that, you can separate the two. So, it's just using some rational logic sense. You cannot have, how does a 30-foot giant have sex with a 6-foot? How do you make that work unless you're doing it in the laboratory,
It's the $64 million question, my friend.
Well, I think what it does is it shows how ludicrous and ridiculous that whole concept is. There are 2 different entities, and the language is totally acceptable. Now, I have a friend. Now, he doesn't agree with a lot of my stuff, but he's still my friend, and he's probably one of the top experts in ancient languages, especially Hebrew. He writes the programs for Logos. That's Dr. Mike Heiser. He's a friend of mine. He's been a great mentor, I think, in many ways. He doesn't agree with a lot of my conclusions, but he doesn't have to. I just want the language. This guy's the best of the best. God, he's one of 5 people that can read Akkadic and the Sumerian, what we do know of the language. He's one that's able to do it. So he's got a good handle on a lot of this stuff. I like him because he's the kind of guy that I know him personally, that he will go out of his way for one individual. He'll leave the 99 to pursue the one. Most academics don't even know how to do that. He's a pretty cool guy, I think.
All right, back to these giants, Jim. Now, why is it that modern quackademia, the Smithsonian, why are they keeping this covered up? Because it seems like they do not want people to know our true past, our true origins, or especially with these giant skeletons. Why are they keeping a lot of this covered up?
What's amazing is the Smithsonian Institute was originally formed to hold the contents of the discovery, or back in the as early as 1830s and around that area, they sent out a mission based on biblical evidence for the opening of a hollow earth in the Antarctic. And so they went down there with the expectation of finding whatever there was, it was going to be put into the Smithsonian Institute. I mean, Jefferson backed this up. Congress backed it up. It was from the work of Sims, and it was um, gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. He was the one that he went there. They almost died, and some did, and so he said the heck with that, and he went to the Caribbean instead, and then ended up going in the North Seas and made some discoveries there. And so that was good enough that he didn't get booted out of the Navy for treason for leaving. But it failed. But I find it interesting that back in those days, it was accepted that the earth was hollow because they understood the Bible said that. Now, there was one guy that wrote in the 1890s, he wrote a book called Cosmic Problems Solved. Believe it or not, his book was used by a scholar who was an occult scholar, an author of a book, Arctos. And he was writing about the Nazis and why they escaped to the Antarctic. So he was explaining, as the author anyway, was a Christian scholar. He was explaining how the earth was hollow and based on all of the stuff. It was pretty extensive. So I tried to find a book and I couldn't find it. It didn't exist. So for a while I thought, well, I can't even validate or verify whether this is true or not. I have a friend of mine. This guy's a digger. Man, he finds stuff. He found the only remaining copy at the New York Library, and it was a free PDF file download. So I got the book. I read it, and it was awesome. It clearly, his explanation is what makes sense. There's 4 ocean currents. Eden is inside the earth, not outside. That's why you can't find 4 rivers in the Middle East, because it's not even over there. It's inside the earth. Jesus first descended into the earth. He went to the upper chamber in Abraham's bosom. Abraham's bosom sounds weird to us because what the heck is, and I remember one commentator saying, well, it was just the fondness that God had for Abraham. And so, no, when people wore togas, they tied it around their waist, and the upper part of it was called the bosom. It was a pocket inside. So that's what we're being told here. If you lived back then, you would know what that meant. But we have lost touch with that because nobody wears a toga and we don't go through that stuff. A shepherd would put a sheep in there that went astray and take it back. When you went to market, you would use it as a food bag and store everything, store everything there until you got home. So bosom was well understood in those days. That's why going to college and learning all these stuffs, or reading even books about it, customs and manners. There's all kinds of books you can. Unger's Bible Dictionary is a great one I like for a source of information. But it's like we have to play cultural catch up. We are studying dead languages. I mean, ancient Hebrew is different as Old English is to us, very different. So you got to go back and study all that. You got to study the history of the places that are around. Cultural idioms, you got to understand the culture, because sometimes those expressions are being said, and if you don't understand that, you don't make the connection. And then the one thing that I'm really gripey about is Pardis is not taught in America. It's not taught in the West at all. Pardis is a 4-leveled layered way of interpreting the Bible, because that's the way the Jews wrote the Bible. So you understand what the writer is thinking. There's the Pesant, the Darash, the Ramirez, and the Sod. Those are 4 levels of interpretation. Some scripture contain each one of them, which means there's a wealth there. That's why you can go to one scripture and get so much out of it, because there's 4 different levels of interpretation. But just like in the Western hermeneutics, it can't overturn the most basic literal meaning. It will only enhance it. If you have it conflicting, then you did something wrong. Your theology's wrong. So there's so much to the language, more than we probably want to get into now, but you have to know this stuff. You can't just take a surface rendering of the Bible and say, oh, that's what this means. I mean, you're going to be thrown off. It's not that it was misinterpreted. They did the best they could with what they had. But now that we go over and review some of this stuff, the entire chapter, 38th chapter of Job, is talking about Leviathan. And some people say, well, it's talking about an alligator, a crocodile, a dinosaur. It's a mythical Beanie and Cecil, thing. Why would God spend a whole chapter on a mythical entity that doesn't even exist? It doesn't make sense. The last verse in that chapter tells you what it is, and we've got it all wrong. It said about Leviathan, and he is the king of the children of disobedience. Who's he talking about? talking about Satan.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about Satan as a collective noun. That means all of the entities, human and non-human. What are they doing? Where are they at? And why are they doing what they're doing? That's what that whole chapter is about. So when they talk about his teeth and his mouth and stuff like that, you relook at the Hebrew there. They're not telling you anything about the teeth and mouth of a dinosaur or an alligator. It is white ivory. There's an army of idols that are surrounded in a fortress of defense, which is a white shining walls encompassing it. Where is that? That's in the outer. Where do I get that? Well, because they talk about the hawk fleeing to the most remote south point. Hawk is always representative of military. What military? The Nazis. That's why they were seeing right there. They accidentally light on the floor and they encounter relatives that look like them. The giants. You know, I've been called a racist because all the giants that you find, they're all white. You're Caucasian. Hey, I didn't make this up. I'm not, I'm just telling you what the evidence is. Why? Because there's big bad white guys because they're the ones that are inside the earth. And they're not good. So how am I a racist? My God, we were talking about our names. Yours is German, mine's English. But you know what? My family lived on the borderline. So I got some German blood in me too. So here I am. I'm a Caucasian. I'm of Nordic descent, Germanic descent. I mean, hey, when I'm pointing a finger, I got 3 more coming back at me. Thank God we have a God that bloodlines and stuff don't mean anything now. Christ
Are these giants? Are they still here with us within the below our feet, beneath our feet, within the hollow earth?
Absolutely. Yep. Only I see them, whatever they're doing to modify their genetics. I mean, I look at the grays as, and we didn't cover that, so I guess I got to go back to that.
Okay.
The demons are the remains of this hybrid offspring of Genesis 6. They're disembodied. They have no body. The bodies have been destroyed. But it's prophesied in the scriptures that they will be restored and repaired. They'll be back in a body of some kind. But then we see in Joel 2nd chapter, there's a great army that has been amassed, something that has never been before and will never be again. Well, I got good news for the Chinese. You're not invading the Battle of Armageddon. It's not you, because it's an army that has never existed before and will never exist again. It's not even human. These are cybernetic beasts. They're things that we're working on right now that, my God, we have no idea that we're opening up Pandora's box. We think we're protecting. No, we're not. This is the prophesied army. In Revelation 9, it gives an 8-point description of the locusts that are coming up out of inside the earth. Now, this is where, when the Bible can interpret itself by itself, we have to pay attention to that and use that as a rule. Now, these 8 points, there's not some genetically modified grasshopper with a scorpion tail, a human head, and the long hair of a woman. It's not a helicopter. It's not any of this stuff. The Bible interprets itself by itself. You know what it says in the 8 points? It's basically going to be a Gabor, a hero, a heroic warrior that's a bully. But they'll look like heroic warriors. They're going to be beautiful. They're going to be looking like humans. And the scorpion tail, there's a scripture in Isaiah. It says that God is the head, as he speaks the truth, but the false prophet speaks lies and is the tail, a scorpion tail. So, like I said, the Bible interprets itself by itself. Actually, what it's saying is that somebody like He-Man, in a huge mass quantity, are coming out, and they're coming out as false prophets. They're coming out with a lie, a religion without the spirit. And how they're coming out, an angel has the key to the bottomless pit, and he opens up this bottomless pit, and they come out. Now, there's one word can destroy all of the man-made theology, and I love it. The Lord was trying to tell me, I was getting ready to do a presentation at the Prophecy Club, and I kind of put it off to the last minute, and then I realized, oh my gosh, I'm way more work than I'm prepared to do. So I'm rushing, and the Lord kept saying, look up Revelation 9:9, look up Revelation 9:9, the original language. But Lord, I gotta hurry up and do this. So finally, I couldn't shake it. So okay, Lord, okay, I'll look it up. Oh my gosh, one word changed everything. The Revelation 9:9 says, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of many chariots into battle. So I look up sounds. You know what it is? It's got nothing to do with hearing. It's phone. Phone.
Hmm.
We get telephone from that word from the Greek. So I looked up Vine's notes on Strong's numbers. Excellent book. I mean, everybody should have one. If you're carrying around an interlinear or a concordance, that's a good handy one. What he does is he takes a shortcut from a lot of research, because you do it on your own if you know how to do it, but most people don't. But he'll make commentaries on the consistency of the use of that specific word and show you what it can, enhance what it could really mean. His comment on that, it says that phone is a sequence of numbers. He says, example, an address. My God, somebody's dialing in an address, length, height, width, and time. And they're bringing out the pit in layers, because the address of that is the same address to the Battle of Armageddon. These things are coming out. They're being amassed as an army for total destruction. That's exactly what Jesus said when he went down to the bowels of the earth, to lower levels. It's in Isaiah 24th chapter. It says, you are dead, you shall not rise. Now he's giving the announcement, you are the Rapha, you're not going to be a part of a resurrection. But he has visited you. Visited, that word is a key word. It means two things. And some theologians say, well, it can't mean both. Yes, it can. And I may not have an official capacity, but I can show you by the word of God any PhD. You don't intimidate me. I know the word, and that's all I need. So you can see that what he says there, he says, okay, this is your condition, but I have visited you. Visited means to intervene in the natural courses of events, but it also means to be mustered up as an army. So what he did, he went down and made an open show to the angels of sin, as Peter said. He said, but you are going to be raised up to your own destruction, so that even your name will be forgotten. This is what we're seeing. This is what's happening. And the conditions for that, it's found in Isaiah 24th chapter? No, 24th chapter, verse 10, starting there. It says, the earth wobbled to and fro like a drunkard. And then he took the ones on high, and he took the kings of the earth and put them in a pit and reserved them until they are visited. Pachad. Same word that's used in the New Testament. I mean, there you have it right there. You got a scenario, man, that's going on. CERN is the thing that is dialing in this thing. They say they're bringing in this parallel universe, and you ask them why. Because we can. Man, they're a bunch of dumb kids beating on a hornet's nest thinking something good's going to come out of it. You are fulfilling Bible prophecy. You know where CERN is located? I mean, the Bible says that there's an entity that comes out. His name is Apollyon. CERN is located on a grid cross intersection on this grid line, and the exact center of CERN was where, in the time of Roman occupation, the temple to Apollo, and translated back into English, is Apollyon. The same name. Do you think that's just a coincidence? I don't think so.
Not at all, man. Not at all.
We are seeing things happen right now. Now, the guy that wrote that book, the theologian about the hollow earth, he said that there was an opening in the Antarctic. He said that there's an opening in the North Pole and the South Pole. So this is a hollow earth from a physical sense. The etherical hollow earth is on the other axis, and that's the 33.3 degree line. There's a great void that separates the upper from the lower. That void is described in Job as doors that are revolving. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're closed. What happens on the Devil's Triangle? Because it's on the 33.3 line. Sometimes people disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't. You know what's exactly, if you drill a hole right through from that line to the other side of the world, you know what you have? You have another place called the Dragon's Sea.
Yep.
Sometimes people disappear, sometimes they don't. There's the etherical one. That's the place that separates the upper from the lower. And so it's like a time where, people are stuck in there. When they come out, it's only a matter of minutes, and it may have been 2 centuries or 1,000 years. Time doesn't exist in that thing. We're dealing with entities that are not bound by time. That's one thing we got to understand about the enemy that we're trying. That's why in the cartoon. You see Trump coming down and the sign dropping and everything in the cartoon, and all of a sudden, my God, it's identical to when he was running for president. There's so much stuff like that. 9/11 is
Predictive programming.
And it's because they've already seen the future. They've gone back in the past and planted all of this stuff as a chess game to fool us in the end. They think they're going to have a checkmate, but they're playing chess with God, and they ain't going to win. The creation is never going to surpass the creator. They're going to lose. They think they're going to win. And our whole concept of space-time, whenever we see anything going on in heaven, that's outside of time. You can't think linear. There was a time when I was telling, I was with Dr. Mike Heiser, and we were in Roswell speaking. I was speaking on parallel dimensions. He was speaking on the Divine Council, which is what he did for his doctoral thesis. Excellent stuff. Awesome. And so we had a 3-hour drive, so I got to pick his brain and ask him all kinds of questions, and it was a lot of fun. And so I said, Mike, did you ever think that the Divine Council that you were talking about, now they're actually sharing in the affairs of what's going to happen on Earth? I said, do you ever think that maybe we're looking at ourselves? Because it's only us who are promised to be joint heirs and co-rulers with God. And he said that whatever these entities are, they're higher than the angels. I said, man, that's us. We're looking at ourselves. We got to stop thinking linear. He looked at me, and it was like a deer caught in the headlights, man. His brain was clicking. He was seeing even past what I later come to understand myself, but he got it almost immediately. And it was pretty awesome. And that's some of the problem with our interpretations too. If we don't understand the relationship between heaven and earth, we are in a parallel altered universe that isn't even real. I mean, it's like being stuck in Satan's head. He has an idea of what he wants to do, and we're stuck in his program. But it's not real. It's never going to be real. That's why Jesus had to be the bridge so we can come back to reality, which is heaven. My claim is heaven is our earth that never fell. It conformed to the perfect will of God. It represents the tree of life. The other realm, it's never going to be anything. Well, it is going to be something. Here's the sweet thing. In the last day, Satan deluded, thinking, okay, I did everything the same but opposites as you did. So I'm entitled to my own rule of realm and my own people to follow me. And I'm sure the Lord will say something like, well, Satan, I got good news and bad news. You're right. Look what you've done to this, Pinocchio world of yours. You turned it into a lake of fire. And you know what? All those that chose to follow you, there's the people you're going to rule. Depart from me, you who worketh iniquity. I never knew you. And there you go. So, this is what he accomplished. This is what he set up. He burned up everything that he tried to make. That's what you're going to rule. This reality is going to be the lake of fire. And he's going to be there forever with all those that chose to follow him, especially the ones that took the mark. I mean, man, we can talk about the mark and everything. I think the RFID chip, I wouldn't get one because you got a tracking device. You're going to know where you are.
You're telling me, Jim, you don't want one of those chips in your body?
Oh, no, I'll pass. Now, I don't know if you know that was it Switzerland has accepted the mark as a non-monetary system, and they're going over to it. And people are excited. They're saying about, boy, I'm Jim 102 part 2 or version 2 or something enhanced. I'm a cyborg. And they're excited about it. I'm going, my God, you guys. India too has done the same thing. They're going to a cashless society and they're using the chip. And so they're showing, they got a PR thing. They're showing how convenient it is. You just go by and zip and everything's there that anybody needs for information. Just crazy. So, we're here. That's part of a slow progression to build up an acceptance. I truly believe that the mark of the beast is we're dying on this world. We're dying and we don't realize it. Look at how many people are dying of cancer. You know why? Fukushima is killing the whole world. Fukushima, people, it's still leaking out radioactivity. Do the math, do a math story kind of thing on Chernobyl. Chernobyl only had belched out some radioactivity in the air for 2 days, 3 days maximum, because they didn't get everything. It affected 250,000 people in the long range. That was only 3 days. We're talking 5 years, and it's still barfing out radioactivity in the water and the air. And I live in Michigan. You know what the jet stream is doing? It's avoiding the coast, the West Coast, and the jet stream comes down right over Michigan. We're getting hit more than the West Coast. It's crazy.
Mm.
And it's killing us. The reason why people are seeing whales, coming up the shore, the reason why there's sharks coming up and starting to attack people, they're running out of food because everything is dying, like 1/3. What the Bible tells us, we are here, people. It's happening right now. This is some time, in the future. Now, in saying all that, there's a balance, though. I don't tell my grandkids, "Oh, you don't have to, Jesus is coming, don't worry." No, I say, the more you learn, the more you earn. So keep going, because this goes on for heaven too. We're not putting on autopilot. The more you learn here, the more you're going to be able to be an overcomer to have more in heaven. So you keep working, you keep studying. Jesus told us to occupy until he came. In the Greek, occupy means go about your daily routines. So I'm going to plant a garden for next year. I'm going to, plant a tree. I'm going to live every day as if there's going to be, goes way beyond even my lifetime, because that's what Jesus instructed us to do, to have a balance in all of this. But I know we're at the end of the end. There ain't going to be no 20 years or anything. I really know that. But I got to live as if there is. We got to be practical minded in this. We're living in a world that is not real. We got to set an example. We got to be an example. What they want to see is peace and tranquility, a peace that passes all understanding. And a Christian that's right with God does not have to be angry, frustrated, or fearful of the things that are coming. We can believe God. If we put him above everything else, then we are open to receiving his promises. And from his promises comes a great strength that we will, as the Bible says, and they that know their God will be strong and do exploits. Man, this is an opportunity for us to get the gospel out, to get the hope of Jesus Christ out. Now's our time while we can still do it, and do it with a fervency, do it with a prayerful opportunity. If you're in, I've been in shops where I was afraid, like, we were talking earlier, afraid of telling them what I really believe. So I would pray, Lord, open the door for me. Who's ready? Who send them to me? It's exploding in me. I got to do something. Show me the ones. Send the ones that need it. Send the ones that are open to it. You know what? All of a sudden, a welder or a painter or something in a shop would come up. Man, what is it about you? What do you? Well, and they start opening their heart up. Especially when you are willing to listen to them first, and not just start talking. If you're willing to hear them out and you ask questions, when they see that you're interested in them, truly interested, then they're going to open up to you. Well, when I was in church, they said this. You give an answer, man. You are an object of healing, and you can help restore people. And that's how it happens. You can't. Jesus isn't somebody that we have to sell like a salesman. We can pray and ask the Lord, open the door, Lord. We can have divine appointments every day we go out if we ask for it, and then just look for it when it happens. Some people are embarrassed to go with me because you don't know what I'll do. I mean, I was in a movie theater watching The Fourth Kind, and I strategically got right by the door, and I had material with me, so I knew this was going to happen. At the end of the show, I stood up, I introduced myself, I told them that this stuff was, in Hollywood, but it's real. I've got information, biblical information on alien abduction. If you need it or want it or interested in it, I'll be standing out in the hall and pass it out. And most of the crowd tried their hardest not to laugh at me. They thought I was the biggest Fruit Loop nut in the world. But in that one effort, there were about 12 people that come up to me and asked me for information. I ran out, and one guy actually followed me all the way out to the car because I said I did have some more stuff. That's the kind of boldness we have to have. We can't, we got to believe Paul says, "For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the power of God unto everyone that believes." You plant the seed, man. You plant the seed, and it's just like what I was telling you earlier. Some things get stuck in your head. I'm a grandpa. I got 10 grandkids, so I know baby shark, and mama shark. I mean, it gets stuck in my head all the time because I watch stuff with them, and that's one of the things. So if you put a seed out of Word of God, it's going to stay in their head, and it's going to be useful somewhere down the line, even though they might have laughed at you. They know the Word now, and the Holy Spirit's going to bring it out, and they'll have what they need when they need it. We just got to be bold enough to do it. Man, there's no, we don't have to be ashamed or anything. We can ask God for the opportunity, and then when we see it, go for it, do it. So much easier.
Jim, I tell you what, this was very fascinating. you are loaded with a lot of information. I know you have many years of research under your belt. Now, I'm going to have to say this is part one of our discussion, because I didn't want to interject too much because you were on a roll. I like to use the phrase, why am I going to jump out in front of a freight train when it's on a roll downhill? And that's what you were, man. So, but this will be part one of our discussion, and I will have you on in the near future where we can discuss more of these things, maybe go more in detail with the Greys, alien abductions, because I had a list of questions to ask you on that. We can make just a show just about that, from the ancient alien abductions from the ancient times to modern day.
I'd love to do that. I've got a lot of personal cases I work with that I can cite as examples.
You talked a little bit about your own case, but maybe go more into detail about that and some other avenues. There's so many different avenues, paths we could take with this. And, just like I told you before the show, the rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper and deeper, the more you follow it. But Jim, I appreciate it. And for everybody that's tuning in, go check out his work. You can go check out his book, Beyond Science Fiction. It's on his website, Echoes of Enoch, or go to Amazon, check it out, and go to his website, echoesofenoch.com. Check out all those articles and the information he has on the website. He's had that website since 1999. But Jim, the man, the myth, the legend, I appreciate it, and I salute you, my friend.
Oh, thank you, man. I salute you too, as a fellow veteran.